So I came across this conversation the other day. I thought it was quite interesting. It's a guy called Sam Seder, who I believe has a podcast as well, and he went on Patrick Bet-David, the PBD podcast. Patrick's a very wealthy individual, and the conversation started turning towards taxes and taxing the rich in particular. Which I thought it was quite interesting. I thought I'd share it and share my thoughts on it.
What's going to make things better for the most amount of people? And in terms of it being in favor of the capitalists, I would also change our tax policy. So, I would claw some of that back, quite a bit of it back.
What would you do?
I would return to the tax policy when we had the greatest, sort of the widest economic expansion shared by more people as a percentage of our population than any other time in this country, which was in the 50s and the 60s. And I would return to the tax rates more or less there. So your top tax rate at that time was 90%, top marginal rate, for every dollar over $470,000 you would earn. So that would be equivalent to around $3 million today. I think we should return to that type of tax
You want it
scheme.
to go as high as 90%?
So yeah, I think they're getting a bit too. You don't even need to put a number on it, right? Like the theory is, or the conversation is about, should we be taxing the richest people in the country more than what we're taxing them at the moment? Should there be more barriers raised as you earn more and more money? That's kind of the argument. You can get into semantics and try and break down the numbers, break down the percentages, but that's kind of the conversation.
At the top marginal tax
At the top marginal tax rate. So understand, that only kicks in with every dollar above $3 million.
I hear you. And
yeah.
That's the famous Reagan situation where I think it was anything over $200,000 at that point. This might have been in the 40s, that he would only do 2 movies a year because he'd get paid $100,000 per movie, and then he wouldn't even do a third movie because he would only get 10% of the revenue because he's like, fuck it, I'm not doing another movie.
Yeah.
So when
Reagan started telling that story.
Again, it doesn't even matter. The point is, if the market dictated that more movies were wanted by the masses, then someone else would step in to fulfill those movies. Even if Reagan got to the point where he was like, no point in me doing more than 2 movies a year. Someone else is going to come in and they'll do 2 movies a year. And then someone else and 2 movies. That's the capitalist market working.
Story.
Yep.
You know who he was working for when he started telling that story, right? He was going around, I think it was working for GE, trying to convince people not to get Medicare for all. If Reagan could have gotten 3 movies or 5 movies, he would have done it. He was working with chimps. He would have been happy to do that for his career. Believe me. Believe me.
What's the top marginal tax rate right now? 39%? What is it
I think
right
it's
now?
37, 39%.
So you're in favor?
I will say this, though, just to finish up that Reagan story. I will say this to you. I remember being in L.A., and taxes top line had hit whatever the all-in was, 57.5. I don't know what the number was, around 57.5. You live in Brooklyn. So 57.5%. People are like, what the hell is going on here? There was this girl who was a top realtor in the San Fernando Valley area, one of the top realtors. Her picture was on all the benches. Everywhere you would go, you would see her. And she was one of the realtors making very good money. She's making $500,000 a year income, doing good for herself, whatever the number was, $400,000, $500,000. One day, I stopped seeing her pictures on the seats. And I'm at Wood Ranch with my wife, and I said, hey, you're the girl, right? She says, yeah, I am. She's with her husband and her 2 kids. I said, what happened? We haven't seen you lately. She says, it's so funny you ask. My husband and I made a decision that the moment taxes got so high, it was more important for me to stay home. It wasn't worth me working to pay this much in taxes. So there's a part of what he's saying. Yeah, whether he's going to do the movies with chimps and all that stuff. But there's a part of it that kind of incentive needs to be there.
Yeah. So I think Pat here is pretty much making a case against himself. I know what he's getting at, or at least what he thinks he's getting at, but that's exactly the outcome that you would want to happen. That lady would have worked as much as it made financial sense for her to work in terms of her tax bracket, and then she would have stopped. But does that mean that houses are going to stop being sold? No, houses still need to be sold. So more realtors would have been hired. More people would have been trained to fill her shoes, right? And if the business is hiring more people, then the wealth would be shared across more people. The economy would grow because people wouldn't be hoarding as much. They'll be spending money, right? Like if you got 5 people who earn £200,000 a year, or one person who earns £1 million, of course, more money is going to get back into the economy if 5 people earn £200,000. And I think that's the point he's missing. That's exactly what the government would want to see from introducing these taxes. They wouldn't be rubbing their hands together because now they think that the richest and least lazy people in the country were going to work harder than ever and make them rich. They know that it would actively de-incentivize hoarding and being ultra wealthy, basically.
America would not have suffered by the lack of Ronald Reagan movies. And I would
you're
also
trying to be
argue,
funny.
I would
I
also,
got you.
but I would
Yeah.
also argue that, like, I guarantee you there was no less houses that sold because that one particular broker stopped selling houses at a certain point.
So go to it. So right now,
I don't think that's a problem.
Yeah, not only is it not a problem, it's the goal. That's what you want to see. You want to de-incentivize people earning so much. Because money makes money. Everyone knows money makes money. Once you get to a certain point, it's easier to make more money. So you want to de-incentivize people being able to make that much money. It's not just not a problem. It's literally the outcome. It's the desired outcome.
I really don't. I mean, I think
to raise it to 90%.
Yeah, no, I don't think. I think
Top line,
you know
3
what you're
million
talking
plus.
about is sort of the Laffer Curve, actually, right?
Yeah.
You know the
You
Laffer.
love the
Arthur
Laffer Curve. You're a big fan of it, apparently.
I'll tell you what I love about the
Yeah.
Laffer Curve is that we had a perfect example of almost like a perfect model of what happens with the Laffer Curve, right? Like the Laffer Curve argues that the higher the tax rate goes, the less inclined people are going to be to generate income, and then because they're generating less money, there's going to be less tax receipts collected by the government. Art Laffer was Sam Brownback's #1 advisor in Kansas. Do you remember this when Brownback became governor? He basically gave over his entire tax structure to Art Laffer. They had it destroyed the tax base in Kansas. It ended up destroying their entire education system. They had an amazing Kansas university. Brownback gets plucked out of Kansas and literally sent to be ambassador to Ether. You know what? They made him ambassador to faith because they didn't want this guy around at all. The Republican-controlled Kansas legislature raised taxes back up because it had destroyed their tax receipts. The theory may sound good, but it doesn't work in practice.
Yeah, of course not. Of course it doesn't work in practice. And the theory doesn't even sound good. Trickle-down economics just doesn't work. People spend what they need to spend and then save the rest. You need a system that isn't skewed towards the few. Capitalism might be the best thing we have at the moment, but we clearly need more checks and balances. Otherwise, we wouldn't see the wealth distribution we're currently seeing. It's out of control.
Are you on YouTube and Rumble or just YouTube?
I'm on YouTube. I think we put it on Rumble. I think we're also
cool.
on Twitch, and
all over the place. Okay, so
Yeah.
let me ask you this question: if YouTube took their AdSense from 55 to 15, would you continue creating content?
Yeah,
You sure?
sure.
You'd continue creating content.
I wasn't doing YouTube for a long time.
How do you make a living today?
Whether you would stop or not is besides the point. That's not what we're talking about. He's trying to equate two separate things in order to make a point about incentivizing individuals, but it's the opposite of what he's saying. Capitalism is like a glorified pyramid scheme. Where's the incentive for the poorest in the country? Sure, you might find an outlier who manages to make it against all odds, but the way the system is set up is that it's way easier for the people at the top and way harder for the people down at the bottom, and it's literally impossible for everyone to make it. And not even everyone. It's impossible for even half of the people to make it, for most of the people to make it. It might be better than feudalism or slavery, but clearly something has to give. Think of it like this, right? Imagine YouTube wanted to increase the amount of people who are able to earn enough to be a content creator, to try and bridge the economic gap of content makers, so to speak. How'd they go about doing that? Would it be to lower the barriers to the people who already earn the most on YouTube, which is kind of the system we have in real life, with investment opportunities, owning properties, better education, nepotism, tax breaks, etc., etc.? Or would it be to lower the barriers for people starting out? Obviously the latter, right? and I'm not saying that's kind of like YouTube's or should be YouTube's business model. I'm just like using them as an example. But surely if wealth inequality is as bad as it is, then more regulations need to come in to incentivize poorer people. And what kind of Sam's getting at is also that should go hand in hand with de-incentivizing the richest people in society for making more money.
I have membership. That people pay. I get ad revenue from different places.
Okay, so let's just say the membership that you get from Patreon or whoever it is, okay? What if their fees went from them keeping 5% to 60% to 90%? Would you continue creating content?
I mean, I would probably have to cut back if there was that.
Exactly.
Well, but that's only because it's such a big change.
No, because that's the part about incentive, Sam. So your audience gets to enjoy you.
I'm not saying we'll cut the revenue for these businesses. I'm saying that the amount of
you
money.
have no choice though, because you're paying these guys. You need the revenue.
No.
Yeah, again, he's crowbarring in these examples to try and get Sam to say, okay, I guess if we remove incentives, then the world goes to shit. It's not the same thing at all. Let's say for argument's sake, let's flip it for argument's sake. The poorest people pay the most tax and the wealthiest pay the least. In Pat's theoretical world, incentive would go through the roof, right? At least for the most important people, the people who are actually creating value, the people at the top. The people who are already rich won't pay another dime. And they were the only wealth creators anyway, right? That would clearly be terrible. The West would grind to a halt. What you need to do is to increase the lower threshold of tax to incentivize the poorest in society to keep working and progressively increase the tax as people become wealthier. Sam's right. He's just been caught off guard and needs to drop the 90% thing. We're getting too stuck on that point, I think.
I'm not suggesting we cut revenue for businesses. What I am suggesting is after that revenue comes in and we divvy up and I have my net profits, then my taxes would go up. But I will say this, like if, let's say, the taxes went up on me personally, would I stop going on YouTube? No.
So would you be able to scale it how many employees you got working for you right now?
I'm not talking about cutting revenue.
I get that. How many employees are you working for you right now?
We have payroll, I think, like 6 or 7.
Okay, you got
people.
that's a small business you got there, right?
Sure.
6 or 7 people. Okay. If all of a sudden AdSense went up, the fees for your Patreon, I don't want to offend you when I say Patreon. I don't know who you use. Whoever you use that's got your membership stuff that you got.
We use Fans FM.
Okay, there you go. That's a shout out to them. So Fans FM,
Right
Fans
there.
FM?
Fans.fm. It's actually a great
Fans.fm. Okay,
service.
fantastic. So if they raised
Take
it,
less than Patreon.
if they take 50% all of a sudden, and they say YouTube says AdSense goes to 15%, would you be able to employ those 6 people?
No, if my well, I don't know, but probably
Maybe that's because you're rich.
No, probably not. But
Yeah, whether he could employ more people or not. Basically and again, he's given an example whereby he can't get any bigger than that. We could figure out what number makes the most sense or what percentage makes the most sense down the line. We certainly don't have to like thrash out a blueprint to how this will work right now. But in theory, if he's no longer making these YouTube videos, if he's no longer creating this content, but there's now a vacuum in the market, right, that someone else will be able to fill. And so these people are still going to get hired. That's kind of what capitalism teaches us as well, right? You can't pick and choose when to use capitalism, which is what Pat's doing at the moment.
But I'm not suggesting that we cut revenue for businesses. I'm suggesting that what is left over from revenue, if it's over $3 million that goes into the pocket of the owner of this enterprise, that $300 million and $1 gets taxed.
Let's have fun with it.
Pat's worth around $200 million. By all accounts, he seems like a nice guy. He's obviously super impressive, very intelligent. But that money that sitting there isn't helping the economy at all. Of course, the argument is that he's created enough value for other people that has led to him accruing that wealth. But the market would dictate that if he wasn't able to accrue such wealth and therefore had less incentive past a certain point, then someone else would step in and fulfill that demand, right? So that wealth that he's talking about would have still been created by hook or by crook. It just wouldn't be created unfairly past a certain point. If Apple were only incentivized to become a tenth of their size now, then the demand for phones wouldn't disappear too. Other tech companies would pop up and take a slice of the action. And in turn, this would lead to a larger economy with improved wealth distribution.
90 cents.
Let's have fun with this. So here's a question for you. And I kind of know what your answer is.
And I want to be clear on something.
Yeah.
I'm doing this. I subscribe to this not because I think that we need the money or that this is going to, be a panacea in terms of like how we would spend this money.
Yeah.
But I see in this country a massive problem with wealth inequality and the commensurate political inequality that comes with it. We have wealth inequality in this country like we've never had before.
I don't disagree. So there's not a disagreement there, but the solution is where we're going to disagree. So
at least he agrees then that wealth inequality is the biggest issue in the country.
Let's kind of process that together. Okay. So, the whole thing, like I remember when I first got out of the military and I went into the financial industry, it's 1999. I know nothing. It's 2000. I know nothing about it. The speaker gets up. Wow, have you been noticing that the rich keep getting richer and the poor keep getting poor? I'm like, okay, my dad's at a cashier at a 99-cent store 15 years. My parents got divorced twice.
I hope you said to that guy, you ain't seen nothing yet.
Yeah.
Wait to 20 years
but you're
from now.
right,
It's going to be completely out of control.
But you're right, though. But why is the question? So here's a question for you. So you're saying above $3 million, that money that the owner is going to keep, we got to tax them 90%. Fine. Okay. So you believe the money, like when I was in the military, you would buy a product for the Humvees, and they would say, yeah, we pay $600 for this piece. We're like, dude, this piece is $40.
Right.
Why the hell are we paying $600 for? Well, the contracts. You know how they are, man. The government always pays a lot because they're dumb. They always pay more than it's usually worth. A $40 piece for a Hummer, they're paying $600. I'm like, that's an awesome business for the other guy.
Yeah, we have horrible oversight in the military.
But this is the point, though. This is the point. And I want to actually sincerely get your thoughts on this, on how we address this. So if somebody overpays for a product, that person's either got to be fired or they're an overspender or a terrible negotiator. But it's one of the three, right? Okay, so you feel money going to the government we do more good with, or money staying in the free market for people to produce more value? Where do you feel values produce more?
Yeah, look, I knew this argument was coming. It's Joe Rogan's favorite too. And it's not completely without merit. Because if you look at it, it's like, okay, the government are misusing funds. All over the world this happens. But if you break it down, it makes no sense. First of all, you've got the fact that the free market isn't going to provide everything the country needs. Otherwise, there'd be no need for a government at all, right? Who's going to ensure there's education for all, or that potholes are going to be filled, or everything's going to be clean, or healthcare, water, criminals are going to be caught, etc., etc. If capitalism really was the silver bullet, then there would be no need for taxes at all. But there's no way that would work. People are selfish and humans are going to human. So we have to agree that there are things that we need the government to sort. Now, the truth is that although we outsource these things to the government, that's not necessarily their priority. Most countries' government act as a legislative arm for the rich and powerful in a country. We all know that lobbying money flies thick and fast, right? And that, ironically, is exactly why we need more checks and balances, and we need to tax the wealthy more and hold the government to account on where the tax money goes. In his example about like a bit of a truck, a Humvee, I think it was, what do you think is happening there? Do you think he was tricked into overspending? Or do you think that they spent exactly what was expected from an industry that had previously greased the palms of the powers that be? It's a tragedy that the corruption in government is sometimes mistaken for incompetence or oversight, right? And you better believe that if the government were taxing rich and powerful people more, then their feet would be held to the fire. Where at the moment, the working class are the class that pays taxes for everyone, and they don't really know the system. They don't know how it works. They can't. They've got no power. Although they've got the numbers. If they actually came together, they would have enough power to kind of sort it out and ensure that the government wasn't throwing away money. But at the moment, in the divide and conquer system that exists, of course they're giving money away.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure I fully get what you're saying, but let me put it in this way.
It's a very serious, simple
Okay.
question.
Well,
I want it to be clear.
Let me make it a little bit more concrete.
Yeah.
So you guys know that the biggest part of the budget, more or less, is Social Security and Medicare, right?
And Medicaid, yeah.
And Medicaid.
Entitlement programs.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, you can call them entitlement programs.
They are,
I call them social insurance programs because
Tomato.
That's what they really are.
That's
I mean,
90% of the budget, I want to say.
No, the military is about $850 billion. Social Security is like $1.7 trillion. I think Medicare is probably close to like $700 billion.
It's about 60%.
And then there's other. But
more.
It's a high number. It's a big number. You're right. It's a high number.
You'll find that it's. I think our annual budget is somewhere around like $2.7 trillion, and the military is like $800 billion, $900 billion. You know that you can see anyways that they show us.
Yeah.
But nevertheless, Social Security, Medicare, the two biggest things that the government does are wildly popular. Medicare, you come from the insurance business, you probably know this. To administer health insurance, there's like 13-15% cost in the administration of that health insurance. For Medicare, 3%. Far more efficient. And copays are less. I mean, and the whatever you want to call it, consumer satisfaction. I don't like to think of citizens as consumers, but the satisfaction's huge, through the roof, particularly when people use it. It's people appreciate it who don't use it. You know, if I got my parents, they're on Medicare, I'm pretty psyched about it because I don't have to take care of them. My mother's in a nursing home now. It's Medicaid that's doing that. I'm not responsible for that cost. Social Security, through the roof. In fact, I think even a majority of Republicans want to expand.
But popular is not a way to qualify something. If I went out there and if I went to high school and I said, guys, I'm giving dime bags to everybody weed, I'd be a very popular kind of high school. So that is a wrong way to qualify.
Yeah, popular is not a way to necessarily judge something, but neither is purely just the profit it's making. Again, to my point earlier, if everything could be broken down in that way, then there would be no need for the government at all. There would be a company that popped up for every single problem in the world because because there'll be profit in it. But there's not profit in it. And that's why we just need some things to work. In the UK now, all the privatisation that started in the Thatcher era is aging like fruit. But there are fundamental things that we need, like water, for example. Anyways, they kind of go off topic a bit now, but I just thought it was an interesting convo. So, yep.
Well, I'm not. I mean, I'm not sure I fully get what you're saying, but let me put it in this way.
It's a very simple
Okay.
question.
Well,
I want it to be clear.
Let me make it a little bit more concrete.
Yeah.
So you guys know that the biggest part of the budget, more or less, is Social Security and Medicare, right?
And
I mean,
Medicaid.
doing that, I'm not responsible for that cost. Social Security through the roof. In fact, I think even Republicans, I think even a majority of Republicans want to expand.
But
Social Security.
popular is not a way to qualify something. If I
No,
went
I
out
mean,
there and
it's
I
customer
gave,
satisfaction.
if I went to high school and I said,